Hello everyone, welcome to BNMIT podcast. I am Tejaswini. It is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Santosh, who has almost a decade of experience in training and development and currently working as an assistant professor at BNMIT. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Tejaswini.
Today's topic for podcast is all about something everyone knows, yet everyone wants to know more and more. How to crack a job interview. So, shall we start, sir?
Yes.
What do you think are the factors that determines the difficulties in a job interview?
That's an interesting question. But before we answer that question, first we should understand what is the difficulty of an interview. Usually, we can equate difficulty to what expectation the employer has towards his prospective employee. Now, there are several factors that affect the difficulty of an interview, but the most prominent ones are, first one, what is the nature of the job? A lot of times, the job demands certain skill sets, and various jobs demand various skill sets. Now, depending on these skill sets, the interviewer designs an interview. Now, for example, a job that involves a lot of pressure and stress equally requires a potential candidate who's competent enough to take that pressure and stress. Now, the interviewer expects these kind of qualities from his prospective employee. So, the interview might include rounds such as group discussion, stress interview, situational round, behavioral interview, etc. And the second factor we are going to talk about is the number of vacancies that the company has. It is believed that number of vacancy is inversely proportional to the difficulty of an interview. If the number of vacancy is very high, the level of difficulty will be low. And if the number of vacancies are very low, the difficulty level will be a little higher. There are always exceptions to this. That depends on different companies and different job roles.
So what you're saying is recruitment is a very strategic process.
Yes,
It's nice to know. Sir, a resume is considered as a very big question paper for an interviewer. You might have come across a lot of resumes.
Yes.
What do you think are the most common mistakes in a resume?
That's a very interesting question again. Yes, as you rightly said, resume is the biggest question paper for an interviewer. Now, first of all, we have to understand the difference between resume, curriculum vitae, and biodata. They are three entirely different things. Ideally, resume means summary. A curriculum vitae means course of life. It is more detailed, so it suits an experienced person. And resume is ideally for a fresher. Now, when we talk about your question, what are the most common mistakes that people do on their resumes? Now, first of all, putting a title called the resume on top of it itself is a big mistake. Don't you think the HR is experienced enough to know that it is a resume or a curriculum vitae, right? So, it is just like showing this is a movie before actually the movie begins. Right? This is a very big mistake. Never mention any title called the resume or curriculum vitae on top of the resume. The resume has to begin with your name. Right? The second most common mistake that people do is they use the same resume for various job roles and for various different companies. This is again a very big mistake. Right? So depending on the job role, depending on the company, you've got to update or customize your resume. That is the second mistake. And the third one is a lot of people, they mention something that they're not sure about on their resumes. Right? For example, I would like to tell you a story. Once, an interviewer asked an interviewee, let's assume there is nobody at your house, you're home alone, you're very hungry, what would you do? And the interviewee said, sir, my mom is a fantastic dish. I'm sure there'll be a lot of food at home. And then the interviewer asked him, okay, let's assume on a particular day, your father and mother are out of town. What would you do? The interviewee said, sir, I have a lot of relatives nearby. And further, the interviewer said, okay, let's say on a particular day, none of your friends or relatives are at home or are at town. What would you do? So he kept on probing, and further, the employee or the interviewee said, sir, I don't know what to do further. Right? And then the interviewer asked him, then why have you mentioned that your hobby is cooking on your resume? This is one big mistake. A lot of people download templates from resume and edit only their academic information or only few information, but leave the rest of the details as it is, which is not even their information. This is again a very big mistake.
So what you're saying is candidate is falling into a trap himself.
Exactly.
Sir, what do you think are your inputs for cracking an aptitude test?
Yeah, just like you said, a lot of people face a major barrier when it comes to aptitude. So when we talk about aptitude, there are various sub-segments in it. For example, numerical ability or logical reasoning or verbal ability. There are many more. There could be even domain fundamentals in that, right? Anyway, so when you talk about aptitude, it is just like playing a video game. Just like when you play a video game, you don't go to difficult level directly. You first play the easy level, then you go to a medium level, then you go to a difficult level, right? Exactly like that, when you write an aptitude, attempt all the easy questions first. Now, easy level questions are those for which you know the answer and you need very less time to answer it. The second level is a medium level where you know the answer but you need a lot of time to think. And the third one is the difficult level where either you don't know the answer or you need a lot of time to think about it or calculate. For example, numerical ability. Now we have to keep those at the end. So prioritize your questions appropriately. Now that's a very, very big key to crack aptitude. Alright. So, and nobody can be a master of aptitude just overnight or within few days. You need a lot of practice for it.
So you say practice makes the person better.
Yes.
There is no perfection in aptitude.
Exactly. Yes.
Nice to know, sir. It's a really great tip.
Thank you.
Sir, as an interviewer, there must be something or some aspects that an interviewer expects from a candidate.
Yeah.
What do you think are those aspects?
Thank you for this interesting question again. Now, ideally, expectation of an interviewer depends on the job role and company, as I told you. But in general, there are three things that any interviewee must be very cautious about. These are called as ABCs of interview. Now, when we talk about A, it is appearance, how you dress, right? So they say that you never get second chance to make the first best impression. So always dress to impress, right? The second one is the P, that is body language. Always exhibit positive body language. Be it gesture, be it posture, be it a handshake. Show your enthusiasm and show your interest towards the company. When you shake hands, lean forward. That shows that you are interested in the job role. And always nod your head when the interviewer says something, when you accept something he says. Have a smile, right? A smile costs less than electricity but gives more light, right? So that is the second one, that is body language. The third one is the most important of all, that is communication. Communication need not necessarily mean English language, but how good are you in articulating your content? Since majority of the interview happens in English, it is important to have polished language as well. You need not use sophisticated English language with a lot of jargons, but a decent, simple English language without any grammatical errors should absolutely do fine.
So, knowing your ABCs can take you a very long way.
Yes.
Sir, you have given us some wonderful tips.
Thank you.
Before we conclude, sir, what do you think a candidate must do when he does not get through an interview?
That's a wonderful question. Now, when a person does not get selected, what is the worst thing that could happen? He did not have a job. He might not have a job tomorrow. That's it. It is not the end of the world, right? So never give up or get disheartened. I'm glad to tell you a story about it. One of my friends during my engineering days attended almost close to 18 to 19 interviews but succeeded to crack none. But however, he did not give up. He was very determined enough, and eventually he got to attend one of the biggest corporate giants called IBM, and he succeeded and he cracked that company for a very bigger package than all of us, right? So you never know where there is a U-turn. So never give up.
I think it is safe to say if you want to crack an interview, you always have to practice, prepare, and perform. Thank you so much for joining us in today's podcast, sir.
My pleasure.
Until we meet again in our next podcast with our next guest, stay informed and stay authentic.